Hey everyone, welcome back to Chicory's Travels. We're Sean and Julie, and we were full-time for 6 years, and now we've gone to part-time status because of some family reasons. But today in this video, we wanted to cover the
How much would you spend on a campground, right?
yeah.
Really, because we're going to talk about, we're going to give you examples of 6 campgrounds that are more than $100 a night, which really sounds like a lot. So we're going to say where you might want to spend more than $100 a night and why on earth you might want to spend more than $100 a night. And 3 of the 6 that we're going to share, we actually have stayed at. And then 3 of them are recommendations from friends of ours that just look absolutely fabulous and have made it to our bucket list.
So let's jump into it.
All right. And we'll start from West Coast to East Coast, and we're going to end, I think, on one of our favorites.
Okay.
So the first one is Cava Robles RV Resort in Paso Robles, California. Now in California, there are all these different, what do they call them? Like viticulture or something like that?
Viticulture, yeah,
Yeah.
winery type places.
Yeah, so people have heard of Napa Valley and Sonoma, but the central coast of California is actually becoming very popular. And so this particular RV resort is right in that wine region. So you're just surrounded by absolute beauty. And it really is a very large campground, and it has a little bit of everything. For example, of course, you're going to have like swimming pools and hot tubs, but you see this big community center right here. They have all kinds of activities. What you don't also see here is that they have kids play areas, they have walking trails, they have dog parks. And then some of the activities when it's not COVID time is, of course, the wine tasting. So it is a fabulous resort. And that's one of the reasons why it will run you about $100 a night. And this one actually, if you look right here for the time of year that I chose to run a little search, you can see that there are a few different options depending on the type of site that you want. And one thing that's interesting to note about this resort is some of the resorts we're going to show you, they have like really massive sites with casitas and outdoor kitchens and all kind of things. This one doesn't have that. What you're paying for is the location in a wine region of California. I think everything's a little more expensive in California, and you're paying for the amenities and the activities, not necessarily the sites. So the sites are full hookups, and they are on the large side, but they're not super elaborate like some of the others that we're going to show you. So the most expensive one here for the month that I chose, which was February, I believe, was $97.71 a night. That's not counting tax though, so it will be more than $100 a night with tax. And this one was a pull through. So you will see here that the pull through is the one that is the higher priced, and also that it has the full hookups. It calls it a spacious site, but we're going to show you some that are even more spacious.
And just one thing about the central coast of California is you don't get the Southern California weather. Last year or the year before last, we were there in the May timeframe and it was still quite chilly at night. So just keep that in mind when you're traveling through the central coast of California.
That's a great point, because we were on the coast, remember, actually on the water for the 4th of July, and I was wearing a knit hat to cover my ears. It was so cold. So another thing that I really like about this RV resort and this particular website is for whichever price point you want, whichever site of type, you can also get a little more information about it and even pick where you want it to be within the resort itself. So you just click over here where it says available locations, and it's going to pull up additional information. Oh, so it was actually April that I picked. So I was picking kind of a spring break time frame. And then they have some photos of the actual site. So you can see it's really, the site itself is not very fancy. It's all the other things that you get. And then remember, it said it was $97, but look down here. Now it tells you it's $113 a night. So always look at the fine print. And there's still $88 of taxes added on for a week. And this overall map also just shows you the different activities that are here. There's 2 different pool areas, and then which sites are available, and then you can select it.
The next one we stayed at was Tucson Lazydays KOA Resort. And if you don't know, KOA kind of has 3 levels of campground, and the resort is really the top end of KOAs. And this one's actually corporately owned. It's not a franchise. So this is actually owned by KOA, and it's a fantastic place, as you'll see.
And this is one of the ones that we actually did stay at. So we will share a link down in the description on our full in-depth article of this that also has a full tour of the entire campground. But what I want to focus on this particular video is the sites that are more than $100. No matter which site you stay at, though, you're going to have access to 2 fabulous pools, 2 hot tubs, a bar and a restaurant. They have mini golf. They have like basketball, tennis. I'm not sure if they had tennis. I know they had basketball courts.
Yeah, they had tennis.
They had tennis courts.
Pickleball.
That's right. And pickleball. And these really big outdoor areas with propane fire pits where we had friends that were staying at other campgrounds that came and socialized with us. So there is really a lot here. And then, of course, all the citrus trees all around. There were lemon and orange, and you could pick all the citrus you wanted. So we did not stay in $100 a night site, but we did know people who did. So let me show you how within the KOA campground itself, there are different level price sites. And the first one, I really loved this type of site. I thought it was so cute because it had these stairs you see over on the left. And this site is $119.95 a night. It's a pull-through site with full hookup, and look at this. It has kind of an upstairs balcony where you could really see like these mountains that were in the distance and the sunset, and you're kind of seeing over the RVs. So it really was fabulous. And then there's this other site where if you have pets, it's super great because you have your own little, first, without pets, you have your own little chimney or fireplace, but you also have, you can see in this one, your own pet area. This is your own private pet area. And look, they even had a little fire hydrant in it. It's so cute. So these ones are also $119 a night. And then you could also get a fenced in dog area, but without the extra outdoor seating area and that little outdoor fireplace thing for about $15 less. So $105 a night. But what I really thought was the creme de la creme of the sites here was this amazing buddy site. This is a pull-through site that has this elaborate outdoor kitchen, this huge fire pit and seating, and then on each side you pull in the 2 different ways so that you're there with your buddies. And it's a little over $200 a night, but you're talking about 2 RVs. So that's basically a little over $100 a night each. And then this one, we just wanted to show you that you don't have to pay $100 a night. So one thing I like about this resort is that if you wanted all the amenities, but you didn't want the super fancy site, you could stay like we did right here in a standard back-end site that just had a small little patio area, and it was $65 a night. So we had friends who stayed at this campground over Christmas this year. Their kids have an RV and they live out in California, and they live here in Virginia. And so they met in the middle in Texas on the Gulf Coast in an area called Port Aransas, which we've been to. When we lived in San Antonio, we went down there. But this one's called Gulf Waters Beachfront Resort. So right in the title there, it lets you know why it's going to be so pricey, right? Beachfront. And they call it a premier luxury RV resort. What do we say about that title, Sean? RV resort. Is everyone that has that title really a resort?
Yeah, some resorts, quote unquote, are just parking lots, really. So you really have to investigate if it really is a resort when it has resort in the title.
Definitely want to do some research. Ask someone if you know anyone that's personally stayed, or read reviews. I like to use campgroundreviews.com, and people will tell the truth about if it's really worth the money or not. But like I said, this one you're about to see is right on the beach, And you can see right here, let me pause this for a minute and show you, there's actually a little boardwalk right back here in the corner. And I think on this end too, maybe, for sure, it's at least one little boardwalk that takes you right out to the beach. And these sites, as you're about to see, also have a little bit more than maybe that Cava Robles did, because some of them are built up, and that makes the price point a little bit greater depending on what type of site you actually choose. So these are the rates, and you can see they do have 3 different levels: deluxe, premium, and executive. And then another money saving tip is they have different prices for summer and winter. So if you look at this map right now, before we click that button, I'm just going to show you, if you look at this map right here, you can see the boardwalk that goes to their beach, and then you can see the different types of sites. So down here, there's motorhomes only, there's back ends, there's pull throughs, and then they're also coded by deluxe, premium, and executive. And so remember, on the price point, it varied based on which one it was. So maybe you see one like the one I have clicked now, and you think, well, I kind of want to know what that site is and what exactly makes it premium anyway. Well, the great thing about their website and the interactive map is that you can click on it and now you'll see a photo. So this one, you can see what all is on this site. And in a minute, I'm going to show you an executive right now. And now you're going to see why it's called executive. You see they have like a little tiki hut. It has like a little outdoor kitchen in it. It shows you the image with a RV in it, so you can kind of see how much room there is on the pavers in between the site and this tiki hut. So you're paying just for those little extras.
Yeah, and the landscaping looks really incredible there. It looks very well landscaped.
Yeah, and then of course they have just a lot of amenities and a whole lot to offer at this campground.
The next one was Catherine's Landing, which is by Hot Springs National Park. And it was amazing. We met some friends there who recommended this to us, and it was a really great spot. Lots of amenities that you'll see. They also had like a beekeeping area where they're keeping bees. So it's good for if you have children, have the children learn about that kind of stuff. But just an overall great spot. And it was only maybe 20-minute drive to the national park, I think.
Yeah, which is a very unique national park in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we will also put a link, because we have a more thorough tour and article of this campground, as well as Hot Springs itself, because Hot Springs is a very unique national park in that it's in a city. But let's show you the campground now and see why it might be so expensive. So as you can see, it is right on the water, and it's the sites that are backed in right on the water that are the ones that are a little more than, are right around $100 a night. We stayed at this campground, absolutely loved it. But again, we cared more about the amenities. And so we stayed in one of these center spots. And so that's just another tip, like we said, about saving, because it was still pricey, but not $100. And, you know, the other great thing is right here on the water, they also had like pontoon boat rentals and
canoes and kayaks.
Yeah, and you could also fish from the shore. I'm not sure if you had to have a license or not. That's an annoying thing for RVers. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Of course, they had an amazing pool, an amazing clubhouse. They had a splash pad on this pool, and even a zip line.
Yeah, and they also had some cabins for rent there as well that you could get. You can see those in the background there.
Now this, yes, this is an RV resort. This is another one that friends of ours stayed at, not us, because there are no inexpensive sites here. And we wanted to stay at our number 6. This is number 5. We wanted to stay at our number 6. And so we skipped this one and stayed on a base. This is in Key West, Florida, and it is called Blue Water Key RV Resort. And these right here, what you're looking at, there are different price points that I'll show you in a minute. These are the ones that are right on the bay part, and they had their own private docks. And the tiki huts and everything, as you can see here. Here's a look of just what it looks like from inside the campground. These are the same ones that we were just looking at from the other side. Here's an idea of what the tiki hut is like and also what the dock is like. Now, these are actually individually owned, and just like that one in Galveston. So they also have winter rates and summer rates, and they have 3 different categories also, and they call theirs silver, gold, and premium. So you can see we're talking $200 a night for some of the sites. It's a major splurge. And then they have a level that you have to call for. In my mind, if you got to call for it, it's way too expensive for me, but I don't know. They might be pretty nice, huh? So on their website, they do explain their different lot locations. You can be bayfront, you can be canal side, or you can be off water. So you can save a little bit depending on there, but you're not going under 100 on any of these sites. And then, of course, the 3 different levels, they describe those, the silver, the gold, and the platinum. The platinum plus are the ones you have to call about. But the other thing that I really like about their reservation site is you can see what's available. And then you can also see pictures of the individual sites. Because they're owned by individual owners, each one is a little bit different in terms of what they have. But this one, you see, they have a tiki hut with a TV, and they have free Wi-Fi. Oh my gosh, that's awesome for RVers. They have ceiling fans, and then they have photos, and you can go through and look at the photos of the actual site. And I think this is the one I want to stay at, Sean. We need to save up and stay here, because this just looks, I mean, look at that. This is on a canal, and it's just absolutely amazing. So let's look at one that's a little more expensive, maybe a platinum, and see, you know, what they have to offer. So here's a platinum. You remember that was the highest level that you didn't have to call to get the price for. This one has a double floating ski jet deck. And then there's just tons and tons, and every one you can see is completely different depending upon the owner. So this tropical platinum one's got the, are those tusks?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty fancy there, isn't it? Yeah, hopefully. I think it has to be, right? But it even has a dining table, it says. And it's a really deep site, and they have pavers instead of just the concrete. They've got an even more elaborate tiki hut. So you can just, I could spend all day just kind of going through here and dreaming and seeing what's available. Again, it shows you what it's like when the RV is in there, and they're really cool tusks.
So our favorite of all of these is Fort Wilderness in Disney World outside of Orlando, Florida. And they have a great resort and campground, they call it. I call it all a resort, because it really is top of the line as far as RV parks go. And we really enjoyed our stay there. And there's just a lot of amenities there for you.
So there are different price points depending on the type of site that you have and where it's located within the campground. They even have tent camping sites, and I think those run maybe around $50 a night. They've got pop-up sites that might be, they might be a little under $100 a night, but it also depends on the time of year as well. So I would definitely go to their website for the time of year. But here's just an example of what some of these different sites look like. This is a premium site, so they're more expensive. This is called a preferred site. They're on a little tighter circle, so they're not quite as expensive. But one of the great things, like Sean pointed out, is it's not just the site itself, because we stayed at a premium and it was like $116 a night in November, the beginning of November, well before Thanksgiving. So it wasn't considered a high season for them. So that was probably the lowest price you could get for it. The site wasn't huge, but you have access to 2 pools, 2 hot tubs, 2 restaurants. And you can look on here and just see snack bars, tennis courts. You can, the bike barn is where you can rent bikes if you didn't bring your own bike, cart parking for people who do. The golf carts, they like to drive around there. And then this campfire show. So the cool thing about this campfire show is that they have a sing-along, and then they also do, like, you can cook s'mores there. And then I also, they have the Chip and Dale characters that you can go get a photo of. And I blazed right by the photo of the kayaks that they have for rent. You can do catch and release fishing. And they have like pontoon boats and these little, they call them John boats. for rent on the bay side, not in the canals. So, I mean, gosh, there is just so much to do at Fort Wilderness. And we didn't even mention going to the theme parks.
Yeah, and there's horse stables. You can rent horses there. And going back to the golf carts, they do have golf carts for rent there, but they're very expensive, and uh, you have to reserve them well in advance usually because they're usually out of them. And one of the other things that we liked about it is if you have pets, there is dog parks there, but then also if you're going to be out at the parks all day, they do have a doggy daycare close by. Of course, you have to pay for that as well, but it is an option so your pets can have fun at Disney as well while you're having fun.
And again, we love Disney and we have stayed at that. As a matter of fact, we stay every year. So we have, and I'll put a link again to the whole full article on all about Fort Wilderness and everything you can do there. I even have a whole separate article just on Halloween at Fort Wilderness because I think it has its own little bit of magic also. So let's just talk for a minute about, I mean, $100 or sometimes $200 a night. Like, that's an expensive vacation. So how can you pay for that? So we already gave you some examples of how you can actually bring that cost down if you want, by looking within the campground to see if they have different types of sites. And then the other thing is just about like priorities. Like, what would you pay for this? What would you pay to be like at Blue Water Key Resort, where you're right on the water? You can see the water right from your site. And that question is all about priorities.
Yeah, and it's about, cutting costs in other areas to be able to afford the things that you really want to do. And so we, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've paid off all of our debt and are able now to, just by keeping a budget, we know like if we want to go to Blue Water Key Resort, we start budgeting now for our trip next year, and then it's affordable and it doesn't hurt as much as when you're trying to get all that money right when you arrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to kind of help people with the budgets, especially if you're a full-time RVer, because then you have a lot more of that lifestyle budget to also contend with as you go. We actually have a program called Full-Time RV Finance. You can find it at fulltimерvfinance.com. And I'll also put a link in the description. And it just kind of helps you walk you through that whole process of setting those priorities and going through some exercises to help you define what your dream RV life is for you. And then we start sharing all the nitty-gritty details about budgeting for RV, because even if you're not a full-time RVer, a lot of people just don't realize what all goes into owning and operating an RV. You have to worry about property tax depending on the state you live in. And if you don't live full-time in your RV, you have to worry about storage. And if you do live full-time in your RV, you have to worry about things like staying connected. So different types of Wi-Fi solutions. So there's just a lot of little details that we cover in our program. And then we also go through our process for getting out of debt and how we paid off, I think, $167,000 or.
Well, we were at the top end, 180 something thousand in debt. And then when we got really serious about it, we were like 130 something thousand in debt. So everything we talk about, we actually did and learned through our own process. So we share that with you in the course.
And the last thing that I would just like to say is when I asked, like, what would you pay for this? Or for us, we didn't stay here. We stayed on base, on a Navy base, and saved money because our priority was going to be Disney that year. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to stay at Fort Wilderness. Both are in Florida. We weren't going to do both of those back to back. So again, what's your priority? Like, which one of these would you pay for? And also, if you've stayed at a different campground that is considered one of these primo ones like that, share that in the comments too. So we'd love to hear from you. Would you spend more than 100 a night? And if so, where?
And so we hope you found this enjoyable and got to see some pretty nice campgrounds, and maybe one will get added to your bucket list. And we also hope to see you on the road. And until we do, safe travels, everyone.